Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and it's, well, 2 for 1 today. I've got a couple of the latest Acer Swift 3 laptops. We've got the standard Swift 3 here, and then its friend, the 3X, which looks a bit more familiar looking, but there's actually quite a big difference between them, and it's kind of tricky to decide which is best. The big news is that the Swift 3 finally gets the screen that it deserves, with a taller 3:2 aspect ratio, which gives you a bit more screen space, along with a higher Quad HD resolution and also better color accuracy. Whereas the new Swift 3X gets Intel's very clever new Iris Xe Max dedicated graphics, which actually works in tandem with the regular integrated graphics to boost performance. But the question is, as the prices of these guys have been steadily going up for the past couple of years, are these still worth buying? Also, which is best between the two? And is having more than one Swift technically a flock? Now, I really like the Swift 3. You see it all the time in lists as one of the best mid-range, thin and light, all-rounder ultrabooks. And for good reason. The entry-level AMD Ryzen-based Swift 3s are great value, even if they don't get the snazzy new screen on these higher-end versions. But this new 2021 Swift 3 and also the 3X with Intel chips are more expensive than the AMD and also the older Intel versions, starting from about £800 and £900 respectively. And it's about the same in dollars, with a top spec 3X going for around $1,100. So what do we get for the money? Well, the Swift 3 is, as I say, a good sort of do-it-all all-rounder ultra-portable. We get a lovely screen. As I say, there's 3:2 aspect, which I think I actually prefer even over a traditional 16:9. And as you can see, we're getting Intel's little Evo sticker here, which basically guarantees a good level of performance and features. Whereas the 3X is a bit more of a traditional-looking laptop with its 16:9 aspect ratio. I would have liked to have seen maybe 16:10 here, but it's a little bit more premium, you could argue, than this guy. And also we are getting the faster Xe Max dedicated graphics. But they're both 14 inches, although you can also get the Swift 3 in different sizes, and they both come with Intel's 11th gen Tiger Lake processors. We're also getting an aluminium chassis on both, which feels nice, but it flexes enough in places to give it a slightly plasticky feeling. Although we are getting a good range of connectivity options, including dual USB 3.2s, an HDMI, Wi-Fi 6, and even an ultra-fast Thunderbolt 4 Type-C port. I think the standout for the regular Swift 3 though is that screen. It's really good. Not quite pro level, but for everyday work and even photo and video editing, it's ideal. It's bright, we get decent color accuracy and contrast, and having that 3:2 aspect ratio instead of the regular 16:9 means we're getting an extra 18% vertical screen space, which for me at least makes this feel much less cramped to use. Although you do get fairly chunky black bars when watching video. Considering the price of these two though, I kind of wish the bezels were flush with the screen. The slightly protruding plastic bezel just makes it look a little bit cheaper. And also, as you can see, the Swift 3 has a glossy finish to the screen, whereas the 3X is matte. I actually thought they'd sent me the Swift 5 because this color, the material they're using, well, the whole thing really looks eerily similar to the more expensive Swift 5. But this is where things get a little bit strange because you'd think this would be the better laptop in almost every regard. It's more expensive, we get the faster graphics, the slightly more premium design, I think. But we're actually getting a screen that's not as good as this. It's not as bright, it's not as color accurate, it's also Full HD rather than Quad HD, so it's just kind of an odd combination that makes me want bits of this one and bits of this one, but with neither of them being really perfect. So really, the premium you're paying for this is because you're getting the faster graphics, so does that really make much of a difference? Well, as you can see from this fancy new sticker, we're getting the Iris Xe Max inside here. And if you hear the words dedicated GPU, and then think that maybe this could be a nice gaming ultrabook, then you might want to dial back your expectations a little bit, because this isn't going to come close to a laptop with, say, a RTX 30 series mobile GPU. So Xe Max is basically a second graphics chip that we're getting in here, albeit with a higher clock speed over the integrated one. And the really clever part is they actually work together. The Max chip and the standard Xe chip can work together to boost performance, assuming the app or the game has been updated to support it. And all while keeping power consumption less than a regular graphics card. Not just that, but the Swift 3X also uses Intel's Deep Link power sharing tech, which allows the laptop to divert more power resources from the processor to the graphics, and this also works the other way around if the system detects high processor load and lower graphics utilization. And so altogether, this can mean a worthwhile boost in games or, say, video transcoding. Converting a 4K MP4 video in Handbrake was about 8% faster than on the regular Swift 3, and all this is actually pretty fast anyway thanks to Intel's quick sync hardware encoding, and so actually I think the 3X's encoding abilities makes it a pretty effective live streaming machine. The problem is, leveraging both Xe graphics processors isn't automatic for all games. It actually requires Windows to keep an updated list of which programs use the integrated or the discrete GPU, although it can intelligently decide for itself. Plus, you can force it to use the higher performance GPU for each program manually, or add them via Intel's Graphics Control Center, which also offers more graphical controls to tweak your experience. But what about games? Because these two Swifts actually have identical specs, say for the Xe Max and the 3X, so this should be a really good way of telling what kind of a difference the Xe Max chip makes. And if we use Hitman 3 as an example, at 1080p with low settings, which is the only way to make it reasonably playable, I recorded a whopping 33% FPS boost, which made a huge difference to how smooth everything felt. And then in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I averaged 30% higher frame rates with the Xe Max in the 3X. 3D Mark Time Spy got a 16% improvement, whereas I saw barely any boost in Rainbow Six Siege, even after setting it from automatic to performance GPU mode. On either laptop though, it hits around 60 FPS with high settings at 1080p, which is pretty good. Exporting video in Premiere Pro wasn't any faster on the 3X unfortunately, despite being so much quicker in Handbrake. So my guess is that the big boosts we saw in Hitman and Tomb Raider are due to using both graphics processors, while 3D Mark's more modest gains are maybe down to the Xe Max's higher clock speeds. But it is worth remembering that this is brand new tech, and Intel are working to expand compatibility, so even if the programs you're using aren't getting a boost right now, it may come in the future. But what about battery life? Well, in my standard YouTube test with 50% brightness using the better battery saving mode, interestingly both the Swift 3 and the 3X lasted the exact same time, around 7.5 hours, which is pretty average and definitely not the 17.5 hours mixed use battery life that Acer claims. As for the backlit keyboard, both machines have very similar layouts, including these irritating page up and down keys which I keep brushing every time I went anywhere near the arrow keys. But typing feels good on both, although there is a bit more key travel and feedback on the Swift 3. Both precision touchpads worked well as well, although the Swift 3 also gets the 3x2 treatment for its touchpad, which makes it a little bit bigger and I think easier to use. However, on both machines, sound quality was pretty weak to be honest. Vocals and music sounded tinny and the bass was, well, almost non-existent. As you can see though, the 720p webcam at the top is in a decent place, but the quality isn't fantastic really. It's quite noisy, the colors are a little bit, well, a bit too saturated, they look very red. So it's not the best webcam in the world, but it's fine, it's passable. So with all that said, are they actually good value? Well, I'm not so sure anymore because while the materials, the design, the screens all suit laptops in sort of the £700, maybe £800 region, I must admit by the time you spec a slightly higher end version of this, they do start to look and feel a little bit cheap considering how much they cost. And when you consider the top-end 3X has the same pretty average 1080p screen as the base Swift 3, which costs about half the price from this $1,100 or pound asking price, it's a little hard to swallow, and you could get a slightly better spec Swift 5 for similar money, or if you don't mind going to a Mac, I think for most people the M1 powered MacBook Air would just be a better buy. Although of course you are losing out on the Xe Max graphics, and if you do want to do a bit of light to moderate gaming on an ultra portable laptop, then this is still a good option because of course Mac doesn't have the same game library, but I can't help thinking that the Swift 3 has maybe just lost its edge a little bit when it comes to value for money. But if it is gaming you want, then you don't actually really have to pay that much more anyway. In fact, I've just been testing the new Asus TUF-F15, which starts at $999 and comes with an RTX 3060 and Intel's new H35 chip. Please work. Fair enough, that's not exactly the same kind of laptop, but maybe it puts the Swift's price into perspective a little bit. But between the two, I think I would probably go with the standard Swift 3 because, well, not only is it cheaper, but I also prefer the 3x2 aspect ratio, and also we're getting a much nicer screen, which actually makes quite a big difference, I found. And light gaming is still possible on the regular Iris Xe graphics. So overall, I think they're both good laptops, and I think personally I would probably go with the Swift 3 if I were to buy one myself. But what about you? Which one would you go for between these two, or, well, none of the above? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this video and want to see more from me, then, well, don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. I'll put links to both of these in the description as well if you want to check them out. And I will see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.